Joining us now to discuss what we've learned today is Eileen O'Connor. She's an attorney and a former assistant attorney general for the tax division of the United States Department of Justice from 2001 to 2007. Eileen, nice to have you with us again today. Thank you.
Good to be with you, Vince. Thanks.
Eileen, what stands out to you from the testimony today?
Well, there were a number of things. Since the Republicans are in charge of the House, they are the ones who called this hearing, and they're the ones who invited the witnesses, and the Democrats are the opposition party. And since the format of the hearing is to go back and forth, Democrat, Republican, the contrast could not have been more obvious. I would like for a lot of people, as many people as possible, to actually watch the hearing. They would learn a lot from it. They would learn a new respect, I think, if they didn't already have it, for the two IRS special agents who came forward, Supervisory Special Agent Shapley and, as you said, newly identified Special Agent Ziegler. They were both so intelligent, competent, articulate, careful not to speak beyond their own knowledge and not to go beyond what the tax privacy and confidentiality laws require.
Yes.
It was they were very impressive.
Can I ask you about their credibility for a moment? Because I think that this is a point worth pausing on. It's hard to imagine, at least from my perspective, that you could get two better witnesses to lay out what was happening inside of the IRS than these two men. As I understand it, they occupied the top two positions in the investigation into Hunter Biden by the IRS. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Ziegler was the lead case agent, and Shapley was his supervisor, the supervisory special agent. And they were both just, clearly understood what they needed to do. They were clearly experienced. And the reason that they came forward is, with all their experience, they know how to conduct an investigation. They know when they have developed probable cause to take the next step and to look into something further. And they knew that the prosecutors in this case, the DOJ attorneys, and they named especially Assistant United States Attorney Leslie Wolf,
yes,
as putting the brakes on their investigations. They would say, we found this, we need to follow up on it. She would say, yep, looks great, you got probable cause. And then a few days later, instead of presenting them with a search warrant, she would have changed her mind, or someone would have changed it for her. And that's something that we didn't get to at all today. And of course, we can't really, because neither Shapley nor Ziegler know why it is that minds were changed after they had established probable cause to take the next step. One thing I found really interesting was that Shapley referred to the special agent's report at the conclusion, to the extent they could conclude the investigation, said that Ziegler's report was several thousand pages long. And he explained why that is, because for each of the felony counts, every criminal count has a series of elements that must be proved. And so in this report, every felony was listed, every element of each felony was listed, and every piece of evidence that proved that element of that felony was listed. So for several thousands of pages, Special Agent Ziegler described the case that they were ready to go forward with,
yes,
including felonies. The other interesting document, and it's not going to see the light of day, I don't think, but and this was kind of amusing. My own Representative Raskin was talking about, well, I was a prosecutor, and I know that sometimes investigators and prosecutors don't agree about the charges to bring, and naturally the investigators are disappointed.
Right.
But what he didn't mention is that the tax division, which is responsible for authorizing any criminal charges that are going to be brought under the income tax laws, wrote a 99-page memorandum approving the felony charges. So in this case, the prosecutors did agree.
Right.
But somehow, again, we don't know, and it didn't come up today because these witnesses can't tell us. We don't know why the charges didn't go forward anyway.
So they made it seem like everyone was agreeing, including the U.S. Attorney in Delaware seemed to agree that they had charges worth pursuing. And then the claim is that David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney, sought permission to pursue these cases in California from the U.S. Attorney in California, and from D.C., the U.S. Attorney in D.C., Matthew Graves, and was turned down, so that he couldn't pursue the case further in those two districts. Those men and in those districts are Biden appointees, and this involves the Biden family. So is this the normal way things work, or should they be excluded from that kind of decision making?
Well, that's why a special counsel really was necessary in this case. We're talking about not only an investigation into the son of the President of the United States, but an investigation that also might reveal criminal activity on the part of the person who is now President of the United States. So there is no clearer case ever for the appointment of a special counsel, and that's what members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Representative Jordan, the House Judiciary Committee, Representative Jordan in particular, have been asking for is the appointment of a special counsel. And you've got Attorney General Garland saying, oh, U.S. Attorney Weiss has all the authority he needs, But that is simply not true. The U.S. Attorney for a district is the U.S. Attorney for that district. And that's one of the reasons I wrote that Wall Street Journal op-ed a few weeks ago, is because Special Agent Shapley's transcribed testimony that he gave in May said that by July 2021, the investigation and prosecution team knew that if charges were going to be brought, it would have to be in D.C. or L.A. for the various years. And that meant that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware couldn't do it. And the only way the U.S. Attorney in Delaware could do it is if those U.S. attorneys agreed, but they didn't. But that's one of the reasons you need a special counsel.
Yes.
Another thing that's sort of grated on my nerves for many years now is that since the George W. Bush administration, the tax division has had a Senate-confirmed assistant attorney general, which I was, only 26 months of the entire time since the end of the Bush administration. There was no Senate-confirmed assistant attorney general during the Trump administration, no Senate-confirmed assistant attorney general during the entire 8 years of the Obama administration, except for that 26-month period. It just seems to me as though the system has broken down when you don't have people in authority who know what to do. Now, in this case, the assistant attorney general should have been not involved, if there had been one, because a special counsel should have been appointed. And Attorney General Garland has to know that.
I want to play some audio for you of Jamie Raskin, your congressman you mentioned a moment ago. He said that Hunter Biden is actually being treated tougher here than the average person who's investigated for tax crimes. I want to play a portion of his remarks. Listen.
The vast majority of these cases are resolved administratively or through civil settlement. Indeed, every year the IRS and DOJ obtain convictions and sentences in fewer than 700 cases for tax crimes of any kind, a minuscule percentage.
In other words, almost nobody is actually punished for this. So why are you picking on poor Hunter Biden?
Exactly. I certainly don't know the numbers, but you're reminding me of another thing. If people watch a recording of the testimony, stop when you see posters. Marjorie Taylor Greene, before she started her questioning, said, "This is a parental advisory notice. Send the kids out of the room," because she showed some photographs that apparently were taken from Hunter's laptop. Remember, the investigation into Hunter Biden started as an offshoot of an investigation into online pornography.
Yes. Yes, and we saw some of those images today, which were apparently.
And she showed some of those.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was chaotic. Mm-hmm.
Along with a ticket that proved that Hunter Biden had paid the airfare for somebody who was later appearing in one of his naked photo shoots to fly from Washington to Los Angeles and back, or vice versa. So she said that's also a violation of the Mann Act. So a lot of people got into a lot of interesting things. One of the Democrat representatives chastised the Republicans for daring to co-opt the term two-tier system of justice, which they really didn't use a lot, except they were saying that, some politically favored people are getting treated favorably. They said, no, there is a two-tiered system of justice. And then they began to give a litany of crimes against Black people going back 70 years.
Yes.
And they were horrible crimes.
Yes.
And they were horrible, but they have absolutely nothing to do with whether an investigation into the tax crimes that may have been committed by Hunter Biden were actually committed.
Yeah.
Another thing that came out was the dollar amounts that people have reason to believe that Hunter Biden received from Ukraine, Romania, and China. It ranged from $10 to $17 million.
It's a wild amount of money. So in other words, like in your experience, again, we're speaking with Eileen O'Connor, the former Assistant Attorney General for the Tax Division in the United States Department of Justice. In your experience, would that amount of money be considered a high-profile investigation? Like, I mean, a high priority rather investigation?
Certainly. So I remember, however, that a tax investigation targets the IRS because they're the ones who know about the prisoners. So only after the IRS identifies.
I'm sorry, Eileen. Just a moment. Your signal's breaking up a little bit, and it's difficult to hear you. I want to make sure people can hear you. You said certainly you do think that this would be a high priority investigation. Go ahead again.
Right. I to remind people that it's the IRS who knows whether somebody reported income or not. So all tax investigations have to start with the IRS.
Okay. And then another piece of this is, Jamie Raskin, obviously ridiculous, suggesting that Hunter Biden was not getting sweetheart treatment. But this idea that the investigation took over 5 years, and during that time frame, the IRS whistleblowers say that the statute of limitations ran out on a number of very important felonies that they could have charged but didn't. How long do these investigations usually last? Is that unusual to you that something like this would take for 5 years?
Not necessarily, and investigations can drag out for a number of reasons, and sometimes it's the person being investigated who slows things down. But in this case, and one of the frustrations of these special agents is that Hunter Biden's attorneys were agreeing to extensions of the statute of limitations, and they would have agreed to more extensions of the statute of limitations, but U.S. Attorney Weiss decided to let those earlier statutes, 2014 and 2015, expire.
Yes.
And those are the years that he was getting the big bucks from Burisma.
Now, I realize that you're a detail-oriented person, obviously. You have to be to actually work in the jobs that you've had. But if I can ask you to engage your intuition here, what do you think is happening? What are we witnessing right now?
Well, a number of things, one of which I alluded to slightly earlier, and that is a breakdown of so much, a breakdown of how our systems of government are supposed to work. The fact that every litigating division of the Department of Justice is supposed to have someone in place who has been confirmed by the Senate. And that hasn't happened, as I mentioned, since George W. Bush administration, except for 2 years during the Obama administration. So there's a breakdown of how government is supposed to work. And actually, if you listen to some of the questions that some of these representatives asked, you realize that our educational system is also just really failing by not informing even people who are running our systems of government how it's supposed to work. One representative, for example, it's in my notes somewhere, talked about agencies of the federal government providing the checks and the balances. The agencies providing checks and balances. No,
yeah, here's the audio of that moment. Did you hear that? Yeah, I've got the audio of that moment. This is Congressman Kwesi Mfume, also from Maryland, saying that these three agencies are a check on our democracy. Listen to this.
Here's what galls me. I don't like these attacks on the Department of Justice, the FBI, the IRS, as if they are somehow anti-U.S. agencies. Those agencies keep this democracy in check. It keeps them afloat. They provide the checks and they provide the balances.
I don't remember that in any civic class at all, that these agencies are designed to keep democracy in check?
Apparently. Well, it's working, isn't it?
It's really scary what we're witnessing. I really,
yes.
Eileen O'Connor, I'm so grateful for your time as always. We're going to have you back because I don't think this story is going away. I think we're going to keep finding out more about this. Grateful for your time.
It'd be a pleasure.
Thank you very much.